Hey guys, Grant here. I want to tell you all about my friends at Black Bear Inn and Suites of Gatlinburg who are making it possible to bring this episode to you. As you guys know, I grew up in East Tennessee, and there are two things that all East Tennesseans have in common. We all love the Vols, and we all love the Smoky Mountains. Since I've moved to Nashville, I've been unable to get my Smoky Mountain fix in, but thankfully, our friends at Black Bear Inn and Suites of downtown Gatlinburg have me covered. They are conveniently located at 1100 Parkway and are within walking distance of all the major attractions and best food that downtown Gatlinburg has to offer. To book your Smoky Mountain getaway today, visit blackbeargatlinburg.com or call 865-436-5656 or toll free at 1-800-933-0777.
Hey y'all, Jordan here. I wanted to tell you about our friends at Three Kings of Cardboard, the go-to spot to upgrade your sports memorabilia collection. Check out their Facebook group and eBay at Three Kings of Cardboard. I have dealt with them personally and will not deal with anybody else. My favorite item is my Jalen Wright 1-of-1 Bowman U Superfractor that they pulled me. Check out our friends at Three Kings of Cardboard today. Welcome to this edition of the Volin' Out Podcast. I'm your host Jordan here with my co-host Grant. How you doing today, brother?
Man, I am good. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. We got special guests on with us today. We got Eric Cain from On3, Locked On Vols, and Volquest with us. How you doing today, Eric?
Hey, I'm doing great. Appreciate you guys for having me on, and it's kind of a unique time where no football season, but there's still plenty to talk about. That's for sure, especially here and around the University of Tennessee.
Absolutely, man. There almost always is, isn't there?
Yeah,
especially
always,
with
especially with transfer portal and everything else right now.
Right. Man, let's get started here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your early life. Grew up in Jeff City. I know that. Played a little high school ball and all that. Tell us all about all that, man.
Yeah, so grew up in Jeff City. Went to Jefferson County High School. Was a Patriots and had a great time. That was a great experience, and it's always special. I played, and I'll get to that in a moment, at Carson Newman, which I made the big trek over to Carson Newman. I actually drove farther from my childhood home to high school than I would to Carson Newman. But
wow.
there's something special about that high school pride where you come from. Dumpling Valley, Jeff County, and I do Rivalry Thursday here in the Knoxville market with Mark Packer and Austin Price, and Jeff County had such a magical year, and we had him on a couple of times, and it was really, really cool to see the success of that program under former Vol national champion, team captain Spencer Riley. So that's been pretty neat, and had a lot of fun doing that. And went on and went to Carson Newman and spent 4 years there. And I guess it was early on I kind of got my seat on the bus, if you will, playing special teams. And I have a huge soft spot for special teams. That's kind of the forgotten third of the game, and nobody really.
Right.
And even in my analysis now, when I'm doing articles and podcasts and everything, you don't talk about special teams much, but man, they're warriors. I mean, I know they've changed the rules on kickoff to where there's not a whole lot of kickoff returns anymore, but you got to be a bad dude to run down there full speed and take those licks, or on the receiving end, dropping back 5-10 yards and then not catching but attacking those guys. And it's a whole lot of fun. So I played special teams early on, played some linebacker my last 2 years. It was never the biggest, never the fastest. Pride myself on being the smartest. I will say that. I'll pride myself on being the smartest and knowing kind of where to be, and I had a blast doing that. And so it was really a joy to kind of grow up, football player, around the Lakeway area, Jefferson County, Carson Newman, and made some lifelong friendships, and definitely would do it over 10 times out of 10 if I could.
Right. Well, you said you said you had all the smarts, man. That's the truth. You were an Eagle Scholar athlete.
I was an Eagle Scholar athlete. There you go. I don't know where you found that, but I was.
I found it on the Carson Newman website. So
there you go.
Still up there, man.
Absolutely,
Eagle Scholar, man. I for me, I'm not trying to brag or anything. I was never a 4.0 or taking, super advanced. I took some honors classes and everything in high school and college and all that, but I was never a super big bookworm. But I was blessed to, be pretty decent in school. But for football, it just it's like a different language, and I just kind of understood it. I wasn't as good at it. I wasn't as good at executing it maybe as some other teammates of mine, and certainly guys playing at the University of Tennessee. But I understood it. I knew it. I got the why, and I think it really helped me. Kind of knowing not only what to do but why you're doing it. That way you can kind of communicate and talk out there on the field. So I was blessed in that regard for sure.
I always tell my boys that one. Sorry, Grant, I didn't mean to cut you off there, bud. What you got?
I was just going to say, Eric, what kind of went into that decision to go play at Carson Newman? Was it just that you grew up in Jeff County, or was it, that was just the best place for you to go play and chase championships?
Yeah, well, I mean, growing up in Jeff County, I mean, you always knew about Carson Newman, right? I mean, all Tennessee fans. I grew up going to Tennessee games with my dad and some great memories. But Carson Newman, even when I was there, played some Thursday night games, and so to kind of kick off the season the first couple of weeks, and really it kind of helped because you weren't playing simultaneously with the University of Tennessee. I remember later in my career at Carson Newman, and may he rest in peace, Ken Sparks, just the freaking legend, man. He would dictate the times for, and a lot of times you have to change them because, we don't know the time for Tennessee games until about 10 days out, but he would dictate the times of Carson Newman games a lot of times to, be opposite of what Tennessee was, because a lot of people in the area, I mean, they're going to go, I mean, you get that. They're going to go root on Tennessee, but you want to have a nice little crowd there for a home ball game. So if Tennessee was playing at 7, we play at 1, or, if Tennessee was playing at 4, we play at noon, or, whatever like that. So, but for me, I got some looks. I mean, if you're a college football player, I don't care if you go to Tennessee or to Carson Newman, even Maryville High School. Typically, you're the best player on your team or one of the better players on your team. But I felt like I had a good head on my shoulders, knowing that 5'10", 200 pounds. I was not going to Tennessee. I was not going to Southern Cal or any of the big places like that. So I would take those trips and talk about those memories. Me and a bunch of the guys we play on Friday nights, then we'd load up in the car, one of our cars, and we go to University of Cumberland for a game on Saturday, or for Campbellsville, Lindsey Wilson, Emory and Henry, Carson Newman, and kind of did that tour throughout the fall of my freshman and senior, or my junior and senior year. And when it came down to it, I kind of I just looked around and everything, and Carson Newman was allowing me a spot there, and I'm like, well, the history's there. The facilities compared to where I was going to go, and really at the time compared to a lot of Division I programs, the facilities were incredible. And I was like, man, this is some big time football. So it was kind of an easy decision for me. Plus, having the home about 10 minutes away wasn't that big of a deal either. I could go home whenever I wanted to. So that's kind of how I made my decision. The facilities were a really big factor. We talk about school, we talk about uniforms a lot of times now, but like for us, we're like, who cares about uniforms? But for a kid, it's a big deal, and like facilities are the same way. And that was kind of one of my drawing points to Carson Newman compared to some of the other schools that I'm sure I would have had fun at. But NAIA Division II, Division III, Carson Newman was kind of advanced, looked like more of a Division I program.
Yeah, I mean, being able to go get mom's cooking too anytime that's a big deal right there.
Absolutely.
Big deal. So, Grant, what you got, bud?
Yeah, well, and one thing I wanted to touch on right here with you as well, your senior season, 2014 to 2015, you had 32 tackles, just looked like you really balled out that year. Kind of what
I had
went
more
into
than that. I had
Did
more
you?
than that.
Google's wrong, man.
I don't know. I don't know how many I had, but I think, I'm not a football player, but let me Uncle Rico. It's what I say on my podcast all the time. Let me go back. I led Carson Newman one of those years. I think it might have been my senior year. I don't know how many it was, but I led Carson Newman in tackles. And I had, you guys will find this funny. I mean, again, small, short, undersized, not the most athletic, but I was good enough, right? And I never in my life have I ever had an interception. And my senior year at Carson Newman, I think I had 2. I dropped another one, but I had 2 interceptions my senior year at Carson Newman. And it was the weirdest thing because, I mean, it was awesome, don't get me wrong, but like, even in high school, like I never had an interception. So that senior year at Carson Newman, I think we finished the season like 7-3. I mean, we're okay. But it was an absolute ball.
Oh man,
you always remember the one you dropped.
Yeah. In fact, the one that I dropped came after we were playing Mars Hill. It was at home, and I'd already had an interception. And then like a quarter or two later, it was one of those balls that were batted around. I was like, and I couldn't bring it in. And it was after I'd already had an interception. But you're right. You always remember the tackle you missed, or the interception you didn't have, or if you're a receiver, the drop or the fumble or whatever. That's kind of how it always sticks with you.
Right.
You ain't wrong on that, man. You ain't wrong at all. Well, I kind of want to talk about your start in media, because obviously that's what your career is now. I know you started out with the Kingsport Mets, doing some stuff for them. Then you moved over to 99.1 in Knoxville, which is how I found you whenever I lived out there. But kind of talk about that. How did you get started in the industry?
How did you know I was with the Kingsport Mets?
Man, Google's a hell of a thing. I've done my research on you, bro.
Falling
Man.
Out boys do their homework, brother.
Hats off to you guys. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, dude. So I played at Carson Newman, and I was so focused. Again, always knew that I was never going to make money playing football. Okay, but I just loved it, and I knew like, hey, when I went to Carson Newman, I got 4 years, and this is it. I mean, the game that I love, and you can always go out and shoot basketball, play pickup basketball. You can go play adult league softball. I know nothing's the same as baseball or whatever, but my point is you can kind of go out and do some of those other sports. Football, you can never do that again, And I just poured my heart and soul, everything I had into football. I would stay, again, I was a local kid, so it's a little different, but I would stay on campus year round. Summer, I'd be out there 4 mornings out of the week, 6 a.m. workouts, me and, 7 or 8 others in the month of May, and then more would come in June, and then the entire team would come in July. And I mean, I've been there all summer long, and I'd stay after practice, do film session, all that, and I just loved it. But in doing all that, and I wouldn't change anything, but in doing all that, man, I didn't think about my future at all. And, Carson Newman, my communications department, I mean, it's not like the School of Journalism at Tennessee or at Missouri or at Syracuse or broadcast or anything like that. I just got a normal comm degree with a advanced speaking and writing. And I really didn't think about my future. I didn't do internships. I didn't do summer jobs or anything like that. And again, I probably should have. I might have been a little bit quicker, up the ladder a little bit, if you will. But again, I wouldn't change anything. But when I graduated Carson Newman, I had no options. And so I knew the sports information director at Carson Newman, and he was looking for a GA. And I was like, man, I like to write. I've been doing a little writing with the Standard Banner, the local paper over here. And he was like, well, I'd love for you to come on. So there, I guess it was 2015 or 2016 and 2017 is when I spent 2 years at Carson Newman, got a master's degree. And while doing it, I was in the sports information department. And the biggest difference in, SIDs at, Tennessee or some big schools compared to, Carson Newman or some small schools is you do everything. And I wrote, I statted, I broadcasted, I took pictures, video editing, audio, I mean, literally everything. And it was rough there. I mean, I was pretty raw. And, Michael Watrang, who does a lot of Tennessee games for the SEC Network Plus and, does some professional soccer games. He was kind of my mentor and really helped me out a lot. And I got to learn how to do all that stuff. But in those summers when I was still at Carson Newman after graduating, I would apply for, I love baseball, and I would apply for, some play-by-play gigs, some internships. And Kingsport called me back, and we met a couple of times. And in the summer of 2016 and 17, I did the home games and some of those away games, because in the Appalachian League, it's now a collegiate, summer league, but it used to be affiliated. And, Elizabeth and Greenville, Bristol, Johnson City, I mean, they're all right there. So I would do the home games and the close games around there. And I think I broadcasted those summers probably, 60 or so games in the span of 2.5 months. And it's where I found my voice. It's really where I found some command behind the microphone. I wasn't, mumbling, or I didn't, just reps on reps on reps. And that was the single greatest blessing in my career, was being able to go and do those throughout the summer. Love baseball. Got to see some great baseball players who are in the show right now. It was a really, really cool job. Made a little bit of money, enough to live on. And that was really, really cool. Big Braves fan, but I will forever, be indebted a little bit to the Mets for giving me an opportunity to do some of their rookie league games.
Yeah, shout out to all of our buddy Tyler Ivins, big Mets fan right there.
When I left the Sports Animal, so I had this stool that's over here somewhere next to me, but the top of it's like Jeff County Patriots. Well, when I went to Kingsport, they had those same stools, but on top it was like New York Mets. And I grabbed like 3 or 4 when I left, and I left one for Tyler when I left the radio station, and he's all pumped up about it. Tyler.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to ask him about that next time he's on with us, right, Jordan?
For sure, man. For sure. I'm sure he's got a great story with it.
You guys have had Tyler on before me? Goodness.
Yeah,
gracious.
we've had Tyler on twice already.
Jeez. Oh man. I mean, I know I'm talking a lot, but I bet that podcast is like 2.5 hours.
The first one was pretty long. Second one wasn't as long right there. But yeah, Tyler's a great guy, and lots of good information from him right there that he was able to share for us. But, kind of talk about you working with Tyler, man. You were with Tyler and Heather Harrington, I believe, at the beginning with the Animal. Then you moved over to Tyler and Will on the starting lineup, and then you left the Animal after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, so when I got done with my graduate assistantship at Carson Newman, I gotten back from Kingsport, and this was August of 2017. And I had already lined up. I mean, at the time, I still didn't really know. I guess just from what I've been doing the past 2 years, I was thinking more sports information. And a little bit inside of me never wanted to do that because I always wanted to have opinions. And not, I mean, there's so many great SIDs and work with so many great SIDs at Tennessee right now, and they do such a great job. And not to say they don't have opinions, but if you're an SID, everything is slanted to that school, right? I mean, your job is to promote that school and to, you know, eyeballs and good light and vibes on that school. You know, I'm too opinionated, right? And so I wanted to be on the other side and do all that. But I mean, I didn't know. I mean, all I'd done has been an SID in that kind of that world. And so I'd lined up a job and got accepted. Like they gave me the job. I was going to be the women's basketball sports information director at South Alabama. And I had an apartment lined up, ready to roll down there in Mobile. And I was excited to be I hadn't traveled a lot at the time, and I was like, man, New Orleans is like an hour and a half away. I'm going to be on the beach. I mean, I was looking forward to it. And one night, it was towards the end of the season in Kingsport before I left, like a month before I left, and I just keep getting notified, like Twitter notification. I'm like, what is going on? When the game was over, I look, and Jeff Jarnigan tweeted out that they needed a board op. They needed a producer, and they were looking, and like all my friends just tagged me in it. And Jeff Jarnigan ended up getting my phone number and called me. He was like, you must be famous because everybody was telling me that I should be calling you. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, what are you doing? You want to come up and talk about this job? And I'm like, sure. So, you know, a couple of days after that, I drove up to Knoxville, sat down with Jeff Jarnigan and, you know, talked with him a couple of times. He gave me the job and started out with Tyler and Heather. And I had found my voice behind a microphone, but I'd never done sports talk. To be honest with you, I'd never really listened to sports talk. You know, the legendary morning show, Dog, Jeff, and Heather. Never listened to it. You know, I mean, John and Jimmy, never listened to them. I mean, I was like, it was a new world, but I love sports and I was a sports fanatic and I kept up with all that type of stuff. And learning this industry was super intriguing to me. I talked about football and how I was just kind of a geek and love that language and the why and the play and all that. That's how I view programming a radio show. I love it. And programming my podcast every day. It's just really fun. And I mean, it wasn't easy. First couple months were really difficult to learn how to run a board for a radio show. It's just massive. And once you get the hang of it, it's super easy, but it took a little while. And then slowly but surely, Tyler was so great. He was like, man, I want you to pipe in. I want you to talk. I want you to talk more. You know, I'm going to go to you. I want you to give me your opinion. And kind of grew into that role a little bit. And then when they shifted, you know, Heather went to middays before she was at IVK where she is now. And Tyler and Will got together. Man, from the beginning, the three of us planned that show together. And I mean, I was always by them, and I thank them for this forever, but I was always included. I was a third of that show. That's how they made me feel. And it truly was Tyler, Will, and Cainer. That's how I felt about it. I mean, it was, you know, the starting lineup with Tyler and Will, but I mean, I felt like I was just as big of a part of that show as they were. And I'm, again, forever thankful of that. And man, we had a blast. You know, I was kind of coming to my own, kind of really knowing the industry, knowing how to program a show. We were having so much fun, and it was so much fun. I love being with those guys, and ultimately, you know, I ended up moving on. But I love radio. I still think one day I'll do radio again. I don't know what that looks like, but that was a really, really fun time at 99.1.
Yeah, maybe you and Tyler and Will get back together one of these days and do a three-way show. But man, you know, I know you got the nickname Cainer, and I believe, and I'm going off the dome right here, but I listen to 99.1 every day. That came from Eric Cain, didn't it?
So Ainge will take credit for it. Tyler Ivins has a friend named Cain, and they call him Cainer. And so Tyler called me Cainer first. But in typical Eric Ainge fashion, he'll take credit for it. But it was Tyler.
Oh, that's good right there. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Always learning something, man. Well, you keep talking about football, man. You want to talk some?
Let's talk football.
All right, buddy. What do you kind of expect for the Vols in 2024?
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, obviously, everybody's excited. I think Nico's going to be, you know, the real deal. As soon as he throws an incompletion or an interception, everybody's going to be up in arms like, oh, we're paying for that. You know, like it just kind of comes with the territory. The number one overall prospect in the country, 5-star, but he wasn't wow through the air really in the Citrus Bowl. He didn't have to be. You know, you ran for 230. He was a big part of that. And His ability to extend plays, his escapability, I love that. And I'm a believer in Nico. I really am, and I'm excited to see what he can do for 12 regular season games. Couple that with a a veteran offensive line coming back, and you add Lance Hurd, which is huge. And on my show today, I had Dane Davis, who's started many games for Tennessee. And if Dane Davis is your swing guy, you're in really good shape. If Dane Davis has to step in and start some games, you're in good shape, in my opinion. And of course, he's going to be competing to start at one of those tackles anyway. But I like what they have on the offensive line, love what they have in the backfield, albeit you're losing a lot of production in Jalen Wright and Jabari Small. But I like what they have in the backfield. I think this receiver room is going to be a lot better. I was wrong going into this past season, knowing that they lost Cedric Tillman, knowing that they lost the Blitnikoff Award winner Jalen Hyatt, knowing that they had Brew McCoy and they had Ramel Keaton who stepped up and Squirrel White, and they went out and got Dante Thornton. I was like, these receivers are going to be okay. They're going to be fine. They're going to be just okay. Receivers took a big old step backwards this year. In saying that, I think this receiver group for 24 is going to be okay. I love the combination. Squirrel's a stud, man. Brew McCoy coming back, and what he brings to the offense is physicality. I like Chris Brazzell. Dante Thornton was coming around before his injury. Add in Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley. Got Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb, who got a little PT this year. I like that group a lot. So offensively, I think you're going to get back into being, more of a top 10 offense, to where Josh Heupel's kind of made a name for himself. Defensively, you're going to be better at linebacker. You're going to be inexperienced, but I think athletic and quicker in the back end. And that front line, you lose Tyler Barron, had a whole lot of production, but you bring back everybody else. And you bring back the nation's most feared pass rusher, in my opinion, James Pierce. So this defense is going to be pretty good, in my opinion. I'm excited. I'm excited about it. I think this football team has the potential to be better than last year, and we'll see how many games they can win.
Man, that defense this year, like you said, secondary, they're going to be young and inexperienced, but man, they cannot get any worse than what they have been. So they got to be better. I think that's why we've seen a mass exodus of guys out of the secondary this year.
It's funny, man. Like, you look at the stats, you get in the nitty gritty, and they've improved in the secondary, not just defensively, but they've improved every single year. But I know what you're saying. It's like same mistakes, same guys, same limitations. At what point do you need to have an influx of youth there? And I think that, we saw a lot of cornerbacks play this year, but that, in my opinion, was out of necessity because there were injuries. Right. You would not have seen Ricky Gibson play as much if not for injury, which is a shame because I think Ricky Gibson should have played a little bit more. Danico Slaughter, I think, is a fine player, but he was hurt all year long. Kamal Haddon was playing like an All-American, but he missed half the season, and Gabe Judalali had his limitations, but he was solid. But there's two safeties, man, whether it be Trayvon Flowers and McCullough or McCullough and Wesley Walker, you put those guys out there, they're going to play 75 snaps a game. Nobody else is going to play, and I think that's just wrong. I think Andre Turrentine should have played a little bit. I think Jordan Thomas, when healthy, should have played a little bit. Tamari McDonald, the star, should have played the star, should have played a little safety. I think Boo Carter's got to play some as a true freshman at star or safety. They were fine. They were getting better, but the limitations were still there. And I think it makes it worse because fans have been watching the same guys do this for 3 years, and it just kind of amplifies that a little bit, right? So I'm intrigued to see what that back end looks like, that secondary. I think Jordan Thomas, you can keep him healthy. He's a player. I like what I saw from Andre Turrentine coming in there at the end. Super pumped to see Jerron McCoy out of the transfer portal. I think he's a player, and so you couple that with a pretty good front seven, and you can be a really good defense.
Absolutely, I think, and I've said this before too. As far as the secondary goes, I think the numbers don't lie, but they can be deceiving, and I think that it's because for years Tennessee, or well, not years, but for the last 2 years anyway, Tennessee would jump somebody so early, teams didn't have a choice but to throw the ball. So those secondary numbers look a little bit more questionable than what they really are.
Yeah, and I mean, when the front seven's not good at the quarterback, it leaves your back end out to dry. I mean, at the beginning of the season, the front seven were getting there pretty well, and then towards the middle of the year in SEC play, the front seven was really inconsistent a little bit, and it kind of showed those warts in the back end. It's all one unit, right? I mean, one can't work without the other, and I think that they kind of went hand in hand. I mean, look at the simple play of the Spencer Rattler pick six with Kamal Haddon. I mean, James Pierce caused that play. James Pierce was up in his face, and he sailed the throw, and there was Kamal Haddon, nobody around. It was like 3rd and 20, I believe, 3rd and 18, and he was playing off coverage anyway, but made the easy play. So we'll see what happens. But you're right. I mean, it was Tennessee jumping on teams early in the first quarter, putting them in a hole. Yeah, they got to throw the football to come back. And, if you can't, if you're not confident in your front seven, your front four to get to the quarterback, you got to play more. You got to play man because you got to bring somebody. And then, of course, you can get dusted in man.
Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
man, one question I have for you when it does come to football as well. What player are you most excited to watch this year that's not named Nico?
Good question. Okay, offensively, man, there's a couple,
Give me an offense
right?
and a defense.
Okay, offensively, there's still like two that I'm thinking of. I'm so excited to see Cam Seldon play. I think he's a stud. But I'm probably going to go Ethan Davis. I'm intrigued with Ethan Davis because he always played wide receiver in high school. He's a bigger wide receiver. He did not put a hand in the dirt ever until coming here to Tennessee. But sitting back there learning that, he's another guy that I thought should have got a little bit more playing time this year in blowouts. But just sitting there learning and watching and growing, and I think athletically, route running, all that type of stuff. I mean, again, he's been a receiver before. He's going to be just fine. But I'm intrigued to see what he looks like at H-back, blocking, stuff like that. But I think he's got all the talent in the world. So I'll go Ethan Davis on offense. On defense, give me Arian Carter. There's so much hype about him coming in this year. And I think that he was a little slow out of the gate. Again, it's a huge transition, right? Huge transition. And I think he was a little stiff. I think he was a little slow. I think they tried so hard to put some weight on him that it kind of slowed him down a little bit. And before his season-ending injury, it looked like he was starting to come around just a little bit. But I like Arian Carter. I think he's got every tool in the toolbox to be a standout linebacker at this level, and to join the likes of, some of those guys playing and Peely, and of course, Elijah Herring's playing a lot. Jeremiah Telander, I thought, had a good year, but I think Arian Carter can be better than any of those guys. And so I'm intrigued to see kind of the step that he takes as a sophomore this year.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm really excited to see Dylan Sampson be that lead back as well.
Yeah.
What do you kind of expect from him this year?
Yeah, he's kind of been the third option, right? When he should have been at times the second option more consistently. He took over the game. Small and Wright both kind of got banged up at Kentucky, and he just flat out took over that game. 91 all-purpose yards in the fourth quarter of that game. I've written about this times and times again, so I can memorize it. But he was a stud, man. And of course, you remember the 4-touchdown game against Virginia. I don't want to take anything away from that, but I mean, that was just like Wright ran down the field. Okay, here, touchdown. It's, come in, swing pass, touchdown. It's, you're at the 2-yard line, touchdown. I mean, they were kind of give me scores, right? But I think that he has a nice blend of speed. He's learned how to run between the tackles. He's getting bigger. He's a leader. He's one of the key leaders on that team. As a sophomore this year, not playing as much as he would have liked. He was a key leader. And so I'm excited about him. I think that he's going to be really, really good. My question is it going to be him and Seldon, kind of 1-2, 50-50? Or are they going to work Peyton Lewis in a little bit as a true freshman, kind of like Dylan Sampson his freshman year in 2022? I'll be kind of intrigued to see what that looks like, but I'm excited about Dylan Sampson for sure.
Yeah, I think you need to have those three, just to have that three-headed monster like the Vols did last season, personally.
Yeah, I mean,
there wasn't enough carries to go around because I'm in the opinion that Jalen Wright deserved to have 4 or 5 more touches a game, but if he had 4, 5, 6, 7, more touches a game, would he be as effective as he was? I mean, he was always fresh. He had 4 touchdowns this year. All 4 of those touchdowns came from 40 yards or more. He had like a 72, a 53, a 46. I mean, it was incredible there on the first, series or so of the game. He was really, really good. Would he have been as effective if he was getting the football 15, 16 times a game? I don't know. But I would like to have seen him got the ball more than 11. But it still does keep everybody fresh, and it keeps everybody kind of off balance. And Tennessee's kind of the luxury to do that right now. Whereas, and back in 2021, you pick your position, you couldn't do that. And that just kind of shows you where this roster is now compared to where this roster was whenever, Heupel inherited it.
Absolutely, man. It's come a long way in a short period of time. Speaking of, how far the programs came in the last couple of years and whatnot, did you see the other day, I've been dying to ask somebody this, McElroy, he got on his show and was like, I give them a 15% chance to make the 12-team playoff, talking about Tennessee, just talking all kinds of business. What do you think about that?
Well, you bring back the majority of your team, right? And so from that respect, I can see why he'd think that. But you do make a change at quarterback. And I know Joe Milton it was a tough task. I mean, he already transferred once. He already kind of lost his job back in 2021. He was the next guy after Hendon, which is one of the most successful quarterbacks in Tennessee history. Nico's sitting right there. I mean, Joe Milton was in a lose-lose situation, right? But he was far from perfect, but he was very, very far from being bad. I mean, think about the quarterbacks that have been here at Tennessee over the last 15 years. You have one good one. That's Josh Dobbs before Hendon Hooker, Think about the quarterbacks that started football games for Tennessee. Then think of Joe Milton this year. And people want to make him out to think that, he was just the worst quarterback in the nation. I mean, he's far from it. But having said that, again, like I said earlier, I'm a believer in Nico. I think that Nico possesses more traits to make more plays than Joe does. Specifically that escapability, extending plays, making things that not just running, but, he made one play in the Citrus Bowl where he ran straight to the sideline and threw a back shoulder throw to the sideline for Mel Keaton. That was a beautiful play. The play to Ethan Davis in the orange and white game last spring. I mean, it was gorgeous. Like those type of plays Joe Milton can't do. And we didn't really see Hendon Hooker do those plays either. So you get an uptick at quarterback. You get a little bit better play, more consistent with your quarterback and your wide receivers. You still get after the passer. You still run the football the way you are. I mean, you're going to win some more games, in my opinion. You got to be consistent. So from one aspect, I see where he's coming from because you do return a lot of the same guys that you've had this year. But from the other, I think if Tennessee can kind of get over some of those road woes early on and play good football at Oklahoma, play good football, and a game you should win at Arkansas, then you're going to be poised to go back and win 9, maybe 10 games this year. So I would give them, Tennessee, more than a 15% chance because, again, it's a 12-team playoff. If you get the 10 wins in the regular season, you are right there. I mean, you are in that conversation, if not in. If you're at 9 wins late in the season, I mean, you're right there on the threshold as well, and I think Tennessee can do that.
Well, man, and kind of touching on the quarterback thing as well. I saw this last night when I was doing show prep, but Tennessee, since Josh Heupel's arrived to Knoxville, has only thrown 11 interceptions, which is number 1 in the country, and the next closest school is Colorado with 17. So the improvement we've seen right there from the coaching staff with the quarterbacks has been unbelievable. But do you think that Nico, Merklinger, and McIntyre are all going to kind of be able to keep that going, or are we going to start to see those numbers move up a little bit more?
I don't know. We'll see. One thing about Joe Milton was, his time at Tennessee in 2021, his time at Michigan, he was not an accurate passer. He came in with like a career completion percentage of like 57, 50. I mean, it was bad, right? There was one year at Michigan, I believe he had a 49% completion percentage, or maybe that was his first year at Tennessee, albeit he didn't play an awful lot. Nonetheless, Joe Milton before this year, and I mean, he was given the ball and he balled out in 2022 in mop-up duty, just throwing bombs and all that. But I mean, kind of coming in this year, the rep on Joe Milton was he wasn't a very accurate quarterback. And I think he had his career best completion percentage of around 65, maybe 66. And, that's working with Josh Heupel. That's working with Joey Halsley. So I would give them the benefit of the doubt right now. I mean, I think Hendon Hooker protect the football really well. Joe Milton protect the football really well. He had that strip sack fumble that was bad at Alabama, of course. But I think that's something that they obviously, I mean, every football coach is going to stress, don't turn it over, but the way they teach and the way they coach, I mean, I'm not a quarterback coach, I don't know, but there's something there. So I'm intrigued to see how Nico does in that respect. And then of course, Merklinger and or George McIntyre down the line, but with Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton sitting 3 seasons, they've done a great job protecting the football.
Absolutely. Speaking of George McIntyre, what's your thoughts on him? As far as prop player, everything like that goes, what do you think of him?
Yeah, big arm, lively arm, can make all the throws. He's got a stature that you want in a quarterback. Now, you want him to have literally 30 pounds. Like you want him to bulk up, and he's got a year to do that before hopefully he gets in here as an early enrollee. But that'll be a process. But he's got the frame to do it. He weighs like 182 right now. He's got the frame to do it. And Nico showed up, I think, at 190. Or maybe 185, and he's at 210 right now. So you're kind of seeing the progression even with Nico. So, yeah, but I like him a lot. I think he's a really, really good quarterback. Quarterback's in his blood. Of course, we know about his grandfather, his uncle, his cousins. I mean, they all have college football experience. I think his dad as well. The fact that he's an in-state quarterback of that magnitude, I think is huge because that's not something Tennessee's been able to produce in quite some time. And I think he's going to be really, really good in recruiting. I mean, we've talked about this at Volquest and on my podcast a little bit this week, but the Nico effect, everybody was thinking Nico was going to, have all these 5 stars, 4 stars want to come in and play with him. And to an extent, it was a little disappointing that didn't happen. but Tennessee wasn't a whole lot of conversations with those guys, whereas they wouldn't have been without Nico. You got George, and he's been gone to camps with, all these guys, and
Right.
Ethan Utley and Cam Sparks and Darius Jackson and a lot of these other, and he knows Josh Petty and he knows David Sanders, a couple 5-star offensive tackles, one Gaston, and he knows all these guys, and I think he's going to have a lot of pull in this recruiting class. So I'm excited to see what it looks into. But I wrote about it this week. Josh Heupel, he's got a staple. There's been some shortcomings in recruiting since he's been here at points and times, but he gets a quarterback early and he gets guys who get after the quarterback. And getting a quarterback in January is just huge, and I can't wait to see what this class looks like.
Yeah, I agree, man. I actually live out here in Nashville, so I've been pretty familiar with McIntyre for a little bit. I'm going to have to go catch one of his basketball games coming up soon and see if I can get in front of him or something right there. But, speaking of basketball, and I am the hoops guy over here on the pod, I do want to talk a little bit of Tennessee hoops with you right now, since the Vols are ranked 5th in the country, just are on an unbelievable run right now, probably playing as hot as anybody else in the country. But what are your expectations at the midway point of the season? I mean, are the Vols going to make it all the way to Phoenix? Do they have the aspirations to cut down the nets? What are you kind of seeing right now?
Well, aspirations for sure. That's what true. You want. I filled in for on the morning show at the Sports Animal a couple days ago, and we had Steve Hamer on, and I asked him, I said, hey, kind of, 6 games into the conference slate, is this team better or worse, or kind of about where you thought they'd be? After those exhibition wins, before the season started. And he said, hey, I think they're a little bit better, right? I mean, and it's not hard to see why. You got 2 huge reasons, one bigger than the other. That's Dalton Knecht. I mean, Dalton Knecht's arguably one of the best players in the country. He's in contention to be the National Player of the Year. He's the National Player of the Week and SEC back-to-back Player of the Week. I mean, he's a stud. I mean, just a bona fide scorer, and can play off the dribble and can drive to the rack. And I mean, it's been really cool to watch him play. But also Jonas Adu. I mean, this guy is really, really good. That hook shot around, a couple feet out from the basket, and his ability to not only play defense, to be a relied upon scorer, to maybe get you 10 points at least a ball game. I know he's been doing more here of late. Huge reasons why Tennessee doesn't have to rely on Santiago Vescovi or Josiah Jordan-James or, even Jordan Gainey, who kind of broke out of his slump, against Alabama. So aspirations cut down the nets, absolutely. Expectations, we'll see. I mean, I know you're the hoops guy. You know better than anybody. It's how you playing, who's your matchup, and even sometimes how you're playing doesn't matter. I mean, in 2022, Tennessee was sprinting to the NCAA tournament, won the SEC tournament with Kennedy Chandler on a bum ankle, and we're sprinting there, got out in the second round. Last year you're limping. You just lost one of your best players in Zakai Ziegler. You're limping to the March Madness tournament, and you go to the Sweet 16. I mean, it's all about matchups and kind of what you can do there. That's why I think it's the hardest thing in sports, in my opinion, to get to Omaha. I think it's the second thing. I think it's the second hardest thing to do is to win a basketball championship, just because it's such a grind. So we'll see. I'm excited. They got depth. The fact that you don't have to rely on Santiago Vescovi to score 20 to win you games. I mean, you've had to do that the last couple of years. You don't have to do that this year, and that's not a discredit to him. He can just go and play ball. It just shows you kind of where you are as a program.
Well, and if you're having to rely on Santi, you saw what it got us the past 3 years, where now Dalton comes in, Jonas has made a huge improvement, and Zakai even has gotten better than we thought he could as well. So just been a lot of fun this season.
It's been a blast. It's so much fun to sit back there and watch. And I have more of a hand in football and baseball and everything over at Volquest, but just kind of sit back and watch and be able to kind of talk about this basketball team coming together. And I mean, there was a little bit of a stretch where Dalton was kind of going through it, and Jordan Gainey's been going through it, and Josiah Jordan-James is playing better than anybody, better than he's ever played in his career to begin the season, and then he's going through it a little bit. I mean, everybody's kind of had a slump, and that happens, right? I mean, it's a long season, but there's so many different options now. I mean, Jonas Adu again is picking up a lot of the slack. Dalton Knecht is Superman the majority of the time. It just shows you the depth that you have and the options, the scoring options you have, and of course, Tennessee's always going to play good defense. I mean, that's just a given with Rick Barnes.
We keep talking about Jonas and Dalton. As far as Adu goes, what stands out to you this year as the biggest thing he's improved with his game?
To me, probably physicality. I thought sometimes he would kind of back away from that in years past and kind of shy away from that, but I think he's more or less embracing it, now in this season. I think that he's wanting the basketball down there in the low block, and he's wanting to bang and try to get in there and that hook shot or, whatever the case is. I think, again, a lot of times on the offensive end, he wouldn't embrace that. And I think that he has this year for sure. That's, again, I'm not the biggest, basketball X's and O's guy, but for me, that's just something that I've observed this year is just wanting to be that guy and kind of knowing, what it can do for the team if you are that guy, and kind of taking Toby Awaka's defensive, aggressiveness and throwing it to Jonas to do on offense. And that's something that I've noticed a little bit. And I mean, he's truly, a second option at points and times for Tennessee right now. And I would have not said that last year. I mean, I would have thought I was crazy, but I mean, credit to him for working, man. He's been really good.
Well, yeah, and one thing on that too, he's really working hard, and Olivier Camois and Uros Plasic's leaving the program, I think, was really big for what Jonas is able to do with that leap that he's taken forward this year.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, those are two guys, and we know about Olivier and the blow-ups he had last year against Texas and then against Duke, and but there was a lot of in between games, tweener games. Not that he wasn't working hard. I mean, he was a good kid and everything, but he had a lot of tweener games where he just kind of didn't show up. But he was getting his minutes, and Uros was getting his minutes, and Uros is a fan favorite, and he was God bless him. He was a guy that I want on my team, but we all know the limitations that were there as well offensively, and then Jonas is getting a lot of those minutes now. I mean, he was playing, but he's getting a lot more of those minutes with those two guys leaving, getting more opportunities. So yeah, to your point, I think that it's also a contributing factor, knowing that those guys aren't options and you're getting those looks now, and he's taking advantage of them.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree with you completely on that. I think we kind of hashed out hoops. How about we end off the show with some start bench cut? How do you guys think about that?
Let's do it, man. It's been a minute since I played that.
Yeah, I want to throw you back to the morning show since I always listened to you back then. But man, I got a couple that we prepared for you today. So start bench cut. I want to know your favorite Tennessee uniform on campus. I have got the baseball cream jerseys, the hoops cream one with the Vol script on it, or the original smoky gray in football.
I would start the cream baseball. I would bench the cream basketball. That's such a clean look. And then I would cut the original smoky grays in football. A lot of people don't like the smoky grays. I like the newer. I didn't like the smoky grays this year, obviously. I liked the throwback and what they were trying to accomplish and everything. I just thought it was a bad look from a just a uniform standpoint. But the smoky grays in 2022, I thought were pretty good. But I know a lot of people don't like that. But I would start the baseball cream because I'm a baseball guy. Bench basketball cream because I think it looks great, and I'd bench the original or cut the original smoky gray.
Carbon copy.
I'm gonna start the OG football gray.
Okay.
I'm gonna bench the cream hoops, and I'm gonna cut the cream baseball. But there's not a bad order. There's just not.
So you're reversing what I did. I think you're starting the OG football Smokies because you're a football guy.
Good possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I'm such a big basketball guy. I wish they'd put those out on the market where we all could go buy those. I mean, I don't know why they're not doing it, but just love those right there. Next one we got for you: best coach in Tennessee football history. We've got Philip Fulmer, Robert Nealand, or Johnny Majors.
Goodness gracious! I mean, wow. This is how did we never have this one on the morning show? I mean, you got to start the general. I mean, not just for what he did with UT football, but for football in general. I mean, no pun intended. For the sport of football, everything that he did. I mean, some of the concepts, the headset on the sidelines to the press box. I mean, that was General Nealand, just a smart little innovation. He started doing that. I would start the general. I would bench. I mean, you got to bench Philip Fulmer. He won you a national title. I can't believe I'm going to cut the late, great Johnny Majors, and that's crazy. But I think I'll go in that order. I will start general. I'll bench Philip Fulmer, and I'll cut Johnny Majors.
Okay. All right. What about you, Grant? What say you?
Oh, man, that's tough. With my age, I'm probably going to have to start Philip Fulmer. I mean, he's the only coach that's won a championship in my lifetime. But it's hard to bench Nealand. I mean, it is because its name's on the stadium, but I'm going to have to do that. And then I think Majors is the obvious cut out of those two because he didn't win any hardware. But it's hard to cut a guy like Johnny Majors.
Yeah. It is. I think I'm going to have to go with the same order that Grant had on that one. Just I'm barely old enough to remember the 90s where Tennessee was an elite football program. Phil I remember the national championship game. I was in 4th grade and had basketball that day, had to get home, rush home and watch the game that night. I remember watching the SEC championship game against Mississippi State that year at school, actually, because we had basketball that night too. And it was just, I have a lot of fond memories of Phil. So I got to go with that.
There's no wrong order except for no, I'm just kidding. There's no wrong order there. If you would have said not football coach, but just like the greatest Vol, then like Johnny Majors is probably up there because everything he did as a player too. So, I mean, it's interesting to think of it that way. I mean, that was an impossible one. So good job well done. We always tried to make those super impossible. So there you go.
Well, I got another impossible one that I asked Tyler when he was on with us. I guess it was last week, but best coach in Tennessee basketball history now. We're going to do Rick Barnes, Bruce Pearl, and Ray Mears. Tyler had a tough one with this one too, so I wanted to put you on the spot with this.
I mean, I know the cut is, right?
Yeah.
I think the cut's pretty obvious. I'll start Bruce. Maybe that's because I'm younger. I'll start Bruce. I'll bench Ray Mears, and I'll cut Rick Barnes. I mean, Rick Barnes is still to be continued because, I mean, this season could change that. But, I mean, obviously, Bruce Pearl took you as farther in the tournament than you've ever been as a program. I think that says something. And we all know everything that Ray Mears did. And Barnes has had a very successful stint. I mean, taking Tennessee basketball and the consistency that where it is right now, plus recruiting. Tennessee's never recruited as well as Tennessee's recruiting right now. And I don't think ever will. But I think right now he'd have to be the cut. What do you guys say?
Man, I think you're wrong on that. I'm going to start Rick Barnes. Just love what he's done. Bruce Pearl is going to be my bench. And as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to cut Ray Mears, which once again, I think that has to do with my age. Jordan?
I think I'm going to roll with, I like your start. I think I'm going to go with Bruce. I'm going to bench Barnes, cut Ray. Hate to do it, but it's my age. I'll go ahead and say it's my age.
These are always good when you can get 3 different orders from 3 different guys. That again, you wrote a really, really strong start bench cut.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And I've got one last one for you. So who is going to be the first coach to bring a championship to Knoxville? Start bench cut, Tony Vitello, Rick Barnes, or Josh Heupel?
So somebody in the Monday night chat. You guys on Volquest?
I am not.
Okay. No, sir.
Well, you should. But we had a Monday night chat a couple of days ago on Monday, and somebody said which one happens first. A Final Four, making the College World Series, championship series, or making it the 12-team college football playoff. And so it's kind of the same question, but a little bit different. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but like it's easier to get to the playoffs right now in football than the other two. I mean, it's so hard to get to Omaha and it's so hard to get to the Final Four. Having said that, the first coach to win a national championship, I will go. Gosh, I think football is closer than the other two right now. Is that weird to say? And is that crazy to say?
Ooh, that's a hot take.
It is. But like right now, like I cover Tennessee baseball, and there's questions about the starting rotation. There's questions about the bullpen. I mean, there's so much talent on that roster. But like I have questions about that roster right now. And sure, I mean, there's questions about left guard and some other spots about football, but like the roster is so much better than where it was. I will start. Nah, I can't start football. I think Tony Vitello is just so much of a winner. I'll start Vitello. I will bench Josh Heupel, and I'll cut Rick Barnes again just because I think it's so difficult to cut down the nets in the end. That's why like active coaches and coaches with like multiple Final Fours, the Izzos, the Krzyzewskis, all those guys. That's why you got so much respect for them. Calipari, you don't have to like them, but like it's so difficult to get to the Final Four, and so that's why I'll go with my order.
Oh man, that's tough. It's hard not to start Tony V in this from everything he's shown with what he's been able to do in his time on Rocky Top. But I think that this is the year for Rick Barnes. I really, really do. I mean, this is the best team he's probably ever had. And will be the best that he'll have moving forward, I think, just with his age and all that. I'm going to start Rick Barnes just because I think that's what I want. Bench Tony V, and I'm going to cut Heupel, but I think football's right on the cusp of being able to break through.
Oh, buddy. Hot take. I'm starting Heupel just because I really do think we can get there. He's just got to get over those road woes. That's the biggest thing, the road woes. If Tennessee can go out to Oklahoma this year, get that done, I'll feel really good about it. I'm gonna go with Barnes second on my bench. I kind of agree. I agree with Grant. I think they're pretty close, and I think Barnes knows it too. You can see it in the way he's coaching ball this year. I think Tony V. Kind of go to your point there, though. There's a lot of questions with the pitching and stuff like that. And baseball, you're really only going to go as far as your pitching will take you.
Yeah, and there's so much talent. Okay, it's kind of like I did a show on this earlier in the week in terms of football. It's like, you're losing so much production at running back, but you got so much talent still in that running back room, except it's just a little bit more inexperience. And the back end, you lose an experience, but you got so much talent there. And quarterback as well. Like with baseball, the last 2 seasons, you've entered the year with 5 guys who could start games at other SEC programs, literally 5 guys. And this year, right now, you enter with 2 because the other guys that you think they can start, they're just freshmen right now, and you haven't seen kind of what they can do at this level yet. Now, in April, that can change, and you'll have a Chase Burns or a Drew Beam out there. So it's just all this. It's all relative. It can kind of change a little bit. So, yeah, these were tough. These were really, really tough. And I agree with you. Like with basketball, like Rick Barnes probably as close as he's been. I mean, especially like you're averaging more points, and like you've surpassed the 80-point plateau already like 3 or 4 times this year. I mean, you got a little bit more than what you've had in years past. So I'd agree with you there.
Okay. All right. Well, before we close out today, man, why don't you tell us what you're working on right now, what you got going on?
Yeah, just tons of stuff over there at Volquest.com, writing a little bit, about Tennessee football and kind of looking ahead to the position groups, for spring practice and stuff like that, plus tons of recruiting coverage and baseball season's, right around the corner, getting ready to go out to Dallas, Texas for the Shriners tournament to begin, not really a tournament, but the Shriners Invitational to begin the season. So looking forward to that. And every morning, Locked On Vols 5 days a week, I guess, and 30 minutes or less. And whatever's happening with Tennessee football, transfer portal recruiting. Had Dane Davis on the show this morning. So he was really, really good and talked loads of George McIntyre. So whatever we're talking about as Tennessee football fans, you can hear it at Locked On Vols, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, well, man, I'm an everydayer on Locked On Vols. I love to listen to you, and great interview with our buddy Dane Davis. He's been on the show with us as well, and great interview and a lot of fun to talk to the kid, He's
a great kid.
Such an easy guy to root for, too. Plus, you guys know I spent some time in Kingsport. I have family from the Tri-Cities, and he's from Bluff City up there. So, always kind of felt like, he was my kind of people, and just such an easy guy to root for. Like, you want him to succeed, and, his story, I love it, and he's really good. Like, he's a guy that's played a lot of good football for Tennessee. So, I appreciate that. He was awesome. I hope to get him on a couple more times here before the football season.
Yes, sir.
Awesome,
yes, sir.
Man. He was a good kid. He's a good kid. We enjoyed having him that night.
Yeah. Well, man, we appreciate you so much for jumping on with us, Eric, and we're going to end the show with a Go Vols.
Yes, sir. Go Vols.
Go Vols.
If you're looking for the perfect Smoky Mountain vacation, Mountain Romance is your cozy romantic getaway. Starting at $129 per night, you get 2 bedrooms, 2 full baths, and this beautiful cabin will sleep up to 6 people. With an amazing mountain view, fire pit, pool table, and hot tub, this place has it all and is located within minutes of downtown Gatlinburg. To inquire, go to Airbnb and search for Mountain Romance or email bearslair2021@gmail.com.
This episode of the Ballin' Out podcast has been brought to you by our friends at Peace of Mind Enterprises. From construction, home remodel, down to general handyman services, Peace of Mind has you covered.
All technicians are licensed and insured, servicing East Tennessee with 30-plus years of experience. Call 865-202-7167 for a free estimate, because nothing beats having peace of mind.